Why do you think it's important to teach children about finance?
Well, I think as we know, having an understanding about money and finance is really crucial in adult living. And, many adult children will reference back that they wish that their parents had taught them more about money or modeled different behaviors around money and finance. Financial personalities really get their earliest roots in childhood. So it's pretty important. But I would also say that many parents are reluctant to talk about money and finance with their children, and they often miss what would be good, healthy teaching moments as they're raising their kids.
And why do you think this is so, like the reluctance that people have with talking about money with their children?
I think there can be a lot of different reasons, but some of what I hear at times is that some parents don't necessarily feel that it's important to be exposing their kids to that as they're growing up. Some parents don't feel equipped to teach about some of those basic things with finance. One of the big ones too I often hear is that I don't want my children to be fearful or to worry about money, and that stops them from having discussions.
As you're teaching children about money and finances, how do you avoid that fearfulness or unnecessary worry?
The main thing is that I encourage parents to create, by their actions and by their words, a belief that our family is safe from a financial perspective. The other thing that I really encourage is to be open to questions about money and finances.
Do you have any other classic don'ts or things that parents should avoid doing?
Well, one of my main ones is to really watch the unhelpful sayings that we use that might be meaningful for adults, but that don't mean much to kids. Second one is don't lecture. Often we're trying to look for teaching moments, but then if we try and project this into a lecture about when you're 23, they're going to stop listening. Next one is, I was introduced to this saying when my kids were young, and I loved it, is don't bawl them out and then bail them out. So we don't want to buffer them from the consequences of their actions or decision making. So don't bawl them out and bail them out, but guide them. You're there to help them understand how to traverse the adult world. And so one thing I like to also say is that allowing your children to experience their consequences is not the same as parental punishment. Final don't is don't fight with your spouse about money in front of the kids. Also be careful what conversations about money you carry on in front of the kids, because as we said before, they're sponges and they will add their own interpretation to what they hear. So just to be cautious with that.
Are there any specific do's for parents when they have conversations with their kids?
There's a do that I like for parents to do before they have conversations with their kids. Mm-hmm. And this is some of what we talked about with marriage and finance last time, is to really intentionally, as part of your discussion as a couple, is to talk about spending decisions related to the kids. At an age-appropriate level is to just be very open and conversational about finances and money. Be really intentional about your perception of your relationship with your child and what you want for your child, and how that impacts the financial provisions you provide for them. Final do, and this has to do with being aware of your own upbringing and how that might impact some of your anchoring or perceptions with your own children.
Yeah, absolutely. And something you mentioned in a previous conversation too that I think might fit under these do's is, how much choice we give our kids, especially when it comes to money, right? And allow them to practice decision making. Right. And it kind of goes to that consequence thing where it's not the end of the world if they experience regret or a negative consequence. So what are some of the goals when we're teaching and modeling healthy financial patterns and habits for children?
The primary goal is through our teaching and our modeling behavior is to, first of all, expose them to a general awareness of money and finance and how it is woven into everyday life, because it is. Help them to understand budgeting, planning, spending, savings, investing, things like debt, primarily around credit cards, sharing, whether it be with contributions to our churches or in the community or through gift giving, And then, as we were talking about with decision making, is to really help them have an understanding with decision making.
Do you have any strategies that you typically suggest?
The first one is to start early with kids with practices about being intentional about allocating money that's coming in. And initially, when they're young, it's through gifts, but eventually it will be through earned income. My next strategy has to do with that decision-making thing that we were talking about, is to allocate some money to kids, and I sort of call it under the family plan, things that you would normally be paying for, and let them do some decision-making. Final thing is, especially as kids get older, is to be really clear and upfront about what you're willing to provide to them in some different arenas, and where if they want more, they can make that decision, but to be their spending. And with this, though, is we want to create not any sense of scarcity, though. It's provision, is that we're game to really help you, especially with needs. But some of the wants, you can figure out what you want and if you want to pay for it. I know kids that will pay for highlights if mom's put in the bill, but they won't foot the bill for highlights if it comes out of their own money.
Do you have any final thoughts before we jump off?
I would say, you have an opportunity and a responsibility to teach and model healthy financial patterns and habits to your kids while they're growing up. But you may not see them fully adopt and integrate them while they're still at home. And that can be really distressing. Mm-hmm. And you got to be careful to pick your battles there, because you don't want it to be a great area of conflict. But if you use some of the things we've talked about, you plant seeds, you continue to model, and you don't fund their poor choices or buffer them from consequences, you're still doing the right stuff. I want you to remember, people to remember, they're not 100% responsibility for their financial personality as an adult. That you played one role in it, but there's other factors that come in. And parents, their children get to be adult, they're independent, they're financially grounded, but they make choices that are different than what their parents would make. Okay. And that can cause parents some distress. And my main thing is I really encourage them to not express their disapproval to their child and to not offer unsolicited advice, because it will create distance in the relationship. And, and if you honor and respect those boundaries, there's a chance that your kid might come back and actually ask for your opinion and your help with something, which is a good thing.
So to our audience, if you haven't seen the other 3 videos in this series, please visit our YouTube channel to check them out. And I hope you have a great day.